Hey everybody, my name is Barry, and this is going to be a presentation on the basic how-to or how it is done making of a horseshoe, specifically a bar shoe, which looks slightly different from the regular horseshoe you might be familiar with. Okay, so what is a bar shoe? A bar shoe differs from a normal horseshoe in the fact that the two prongs that are usually open are connected by a piece of steel, and these shoes are made for horses that might need special extra support, and this piece of steel gives them extra support. So what are the tools that you need? You need bar stock, a forge, propane to power the forge, an anvil, rounding hammer, tongs, creaser, wire brush, drift, pritchel, hot rasp, ruler, calipers, center punch, welding flux, and a crosspeen hammer. These are all the ones that you're going to need to make a horseshoe. First thing, to make the horseshoe, you have to know how large or small it's going to need to be. So you measure the horse's foot. A good basic way to measure the horse's hoof is to measure the circumference and then subtract 1.1 inches. That will give you the length of steel that you need to cut to make the shoe. So then the steel. So you have the length that you need, so you have to cut the steel, and also you need to use the proper width and thickness of steel. This also depends on the size of the horse and the condition of the horse's hoof. There are several other conditions. Then you need to heat the steel to make the initial bend. You first use the center punch to mark the center of the steel so you know where the middle of the toe of the shoe is going to be. Then you toss it into the forge so the center of the steel gets hot. The forge is about 2500 degrees. Then you start bending the steel, and notice how it's not just being pounded on. The center is hot, but the ends are cool, and you hit the ends to bend the center. This keeps the metal from getting deformed more than it needs to be, because you have to keep the metal from getting thicker or thinner. You're just reshaping. You don't want it to get thick in some places and thinner in some places, or wider in some places, or narrow in some places. And to keep the ends cool while you're working on it, you have the quenching bucket, so you can pound on them and they won't deform. Alright, you've got your initial center bend. Now you have to mark the crease, where the crease is going to be, and this is done with the creaser and the rounding hammer. The crease is an area where nail holes are eventually going to be put in. It also helps add traction to the shoe, so the horse gets a little extra traction. Then you're going to start making the hockey sticks. They're called hockey sticks, well, because they end up kind of looking like hockey sticks. These are the areas at each end of the piece of steel that are getting turned in, that are eventually going to be connected to make the shoe complete. Then you start curving the rest of the steel around closer and closer through successive heatings and careful bendings to bring the edges of the hockey sticks, the ends of the hockey sticks together. And you want to be careful because you don't want to misshape the steel. You just want to bend the steel. You don't want to make it thicker or thinner again. Then you do something called forge welding. And this isn't welding like with a torch or anything. This is welding done with pure heat and a hammer. You use welding flux, and you put the welding flux, which is basically iron powder and borax, in between the two ends, and you put it in the forge. At this point, the forge is turned up to a higher temperature, and then when you take it out, you start using the crosspeen hammer that has a sharper edge to pound the two edges together to form a seamless bond between the two hockey sticks, and making the shoe a complete, not a circle, but a complete ring. And you have to be very careful because, again, you don't want to make it too thin or end up making it too wide. So once you've got the connected, you turn the fire down because you don't need it so hot, and then you start making the crease. This, again, you use the creaser and the rounding hammer, and this, you've already marked where the crease is going to be, and you use the creaser to make it deeper. This crease is eventually going to have, like I said, the nail holes in it, and it adds traction to the shoe. Again, putting the crease into the shoe is going to press the shoe apart, so you also have to make sure you keep the shoe the same width it always was, so it's a process of putting in the crease and then resizing the shoe so it didn't spread out too much. Then you use the drift to put big dents where the nails, it's starting the initial start of the nail holes. It's basically a large punch that puts a dent into where you're going to put the nail holes. That's inside the crease. Then once you have those dents with the pritchel, you're going to take the pritchel and actually punch the holes, because the successive cutting through the steel with the crease and then the drift has made the steel thin enough that you can pound the pritchel through and actually make a hole. After that, you're going to hot wraps. This is to smooth edges, so the horse won't hurt itself with the shoe. The shoe won't be sharp. The shoe won't hurt the farrier while they're putting it on with sharp edges and stuff like that. And then the last step is going to be called coining. This is where the farrier pounds on the relatively cool metal, and it gives it a shinier surface. This is a show of marksmanship. And then you've got a complete horseshoe, and it's ready to be put on the horse.